Are you going to do you have any announcements?
No, you're just running with it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hi, everyone. Welcome to tonight's team call. And I am acting as Rose tonight and hosting because we have a really amazing speaker. And I'm excited to introduce all of you to my friend and my new coach, Dr. Karen Stabler. And Karen's the owner of a company called, that makes a product called Sunflower. The company is Think, Eat, Live. And she has a really compelling story about how she really kind of was forced to use nutrition to heal some health issues. And I know I wanted her to speak on the call because I know this is so relevant for so many of us and so many of the customers that we're helping, that I thought hearing her story and also the strategies that she has learned that she teaches others is going to be so valuable, again, for all of us and for the customers that we're helping. So I'm so excited for Karen to be here. So once again, welcome and hello.
Thank you.
So let me tell everyone just a little bit more about you, and then we can jump into your story. So Karen calls herself a socially responsible entrepreneur with passion for changing people's lives. And she, like I mentioned, she's the co-founder of the company Think, Eat, Live. She wears, I know from all of our conversations, she wears a lot of hats and is really a jack of all trades. But she actually has a past career prior to getting into all of this. She's a psychologist, and she was working in leadership and corporate roles for some pretty big companies, and was responsible for leadership development and some change initiatives. So she was having a really massive impact in the corporate world, and was also the founder of a management consulting firm, Stabler and Associates. And then, as you'll hear in her story, she transitioned into this world of nutrition and behavior change and product development and product distribution and all of that. So it's a great story. So I'm going to let you kind of fill in all the details and tell us the story, Karen, of how you got into the company.
All right. Thanks, Carol. And maybe we can get off my face on the screen for different slide. Maybe just pop back to the first one for a second.
Okay. All right. Give me a second. Hold on.
Yeah. No. So you mentioned that I was kind of forced into making a change, and that is absolutely how it happened. You hear the expression frustration is the mother of invention, and that is precisely what our situation was. So at age 30, and I'm now 54, I had put on more weight than ever in my life. I'd always been tall and thin, so me putting on weight was a very unusual thing, but I gained like 3 sizes in about a year. I had chronic stomach problems, I had brain fog, I was exhausted, and I was hungry like all the time. And at the same time, my partner, Dan, was having allergies that were so severe that they required pills and shots. And then I call it threats of surgery, but the doctor was saying, well, there's nothing else we could do, but we could try surgery, even though I don't think it'll help. And he's kind of like, no. So, we both were really suffering, and we were not getting help from any doctors in traditional medicine. We got really lucky, and we found a nutritionist who really was quite astute at helping us make the connection between food and our health. And it never occurred to me that food would give me brain fog, or I understood that I could gain weight or, feel tired or something else. But a lot of the symptoms that we were experiencing, the main culprits that were identified were gluten and carbs. And dairy also happened to be in that hopper, but the biggies were gluten and carbs. And so to heal, we had to go gluten-free and had to lower our carb and sugar intake, which was really hard because I kind of grew up in an Italian family, and everything was pasta, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, what on earth am I going to eat? So our biggest challenge really became like breakfast and snacks, because if you think about what's available for breakfast and snacks, if you're going low carb and gluten-free, all of a sudden you've got very little. Most of the gluten-free products that say gluten-free on them on the shelves in the grocery, you don't want any of them. They're higher sugar and higher carb than the things they replace. They have zero nutrition in them. And then I happen to have a nut allergy, so that complicated things even further, because you look at trail mixes and other kinds of things that might offer a nutritional benefit, and suddenly I couldn't have them. So we got really creative, and my partner Dan just started experimenting with sunflower seeds as our protein source. And we were shocked, because what we actually learned was that sunflower seeds have more protein than any other seed, any nut, or any grain. And that was really surprising, because all you hear about is almond and things. And actually sunflower seeds are way, way better on the nutrition scale. Lucky for me, we started throwing them in like a gluten-free pancake mix just to boost the protein. And we found out we were getting full, and that was amazing. And we were feeling a little bit better. And after a while, Dan was like, hey, I don't need any of this other stuff. I can make a flour out of sunflower seeds, and we're gonna make pancakes, we're gonna make waffles, we're gonna make pizza, we're gonna make bread, and we're gonna make everything out of it. It sounds a little weird, because you might think, oh, are you like eating something that tastes like seeds all the time? And the fact of the matter is, it's such a mild flavor, and we really source very mild seeds that you just don't even notice that that's what you're eating. So this was, again, over 2 decades ago that we began eating this way. We were full. I lost, 3 sizes. I got my energy back, and probably even more energy than I'd ever had before. And this was all without like implementing an exercise program, which, by the way, I think is really important. But that wasn't what caused all of these changes. And after a while, our nutritionist just said, you guys have got to do something other than keep this to yourselves. Well, we continued our corporate jobs for a really long time, and didn't really kind of pay attention to the greater need. If you want to move to the next slide, Carol.
Yep.
Or actually the one after. So really briefly, the problem was way beyond what Dan and I were facing. I mean, you can see from the CDC facts, stats that are here, that the US is facing an epidemic of obesity, diabetes, and many, many other diseases, most of which are preventable through diet and lifestyle changes. They are linked to the country's out of control carb consumption, gluten consumption, and the USDA guidelines that told everybody to eat low fat. All of those things combined led to this like crazy increase in these diseases. Then there are a whole host of other diseases that have been found to be correlated to just gluten alone. So then when you think about, okay, well, if you're going to go low carb, that typically means eating foods that don't taste so real, or have ingredients with some strange side effects. Because again, if you're buying packaged things, or things that aren't whole foods, which is really important for, being able to get all the benefit from the food that you're eating. And it just, and at the end of the day, it's kind of not really very enjoyable. And when you're not enjoying what you eat, it's really hard to sustain a lifestyle and diet change like this. So we can go to the next one, Carol. And what we realized was there was really a big unmet need for more people than just Dan and I. And we decided to take the leap and leave our corporate jobs and start out something so that we could kind of share what we were doing with the world. But I wanted to show you just a little bit, and you might be familiar with some of these doctors who are really very progressive healthcare practitioners in functional medicine. And if you look at what they're suggesting is the ideal macronutrient balance for healthy diets, they're telling people, healthy fat is really what it's all about, followed by protein, followed by carbs. And when they're talking about carbs, they're talking about complex carbs, not empty carbs like refined sugar and all that processed stuff. If you look at a sunflower seed, and actually if you take the sunflower seeds that we source, which are actually the healthiest ones on the market, what you'll find is that it maps really, really closely with what are the macronutrient requirements in a healthy diet. So in sunflower, you're going to get a great dose of healthy fat, protein, and then you're going to get, carbs and fiber. And so just as an example, in a 1/4 cup serving of sunflower, you're going to only have 3 net carbs. So that's really low. It's actually the lowest alternative flour out there carb wise. And it has the healthiest fat profile. You can go on, Carol. So
Wait,
I'm
Karen,
telling you
can I
all
jump in?
that.
Can I jump
Oh,
in
go
before we get into these the awesome tips? I just
Yeah.
want to acknowledge, I mean, for people listening, I've heard your story before, but it never ceases to amaze me how compelling that story is. And I know so many people who are going to be listening to this call are in the same boat, trying to figure out, I don't feel great and I just can't figure out why. And of course, we're kind of preaching to the choir because we are already believers in the power of nutrition, but this is really taking it to like the top level of really being so intentional about your nutrition to get to the bottom of your health problems and to feel better. And you guys have, I know that you hold such a high standard and you've done so much research to really make sure that the solution you're finding is not just helping you get by, like you're not just taking out the things that were causing problems, but you're also making sure you add in food that is really of beneficial nutrition. And a lot of people miss that step. And
Yes.
It's just, well, how do I eliminate what I'm trying to eliminate and just kind of make do without it? And it's just so important to also think about what you're adding in so that you're still getting the nutrition. And as you're also going to talk about in a minute, like the enjoyment and the satisfaction and the taste and the flavor and all of that. And I also just wanted to acknowledge something that you had mentioned to me a while ago, which is that it's not necessarily easy to take a seed and make a flour.
Right.
So I want us to talk a little bit about Dan's process.
Sure. Yeah, that was a 2-year process, by the way. So when we and we now have people copying us who are on the market, but when we got this going, there was nobody doing it. Dan literally thought, oh, well, I'll just be able to go to any mill in the country and they'll just be able to turn seeds into a flour. And what he found out was none of them could do it because they're oil seeds. And we, by the way, do not extract the oil from the seed very intentionally. So you'll find, sunflower, you could make a sunflower protein powder extracting the oil, but you don't get all the healthy fat. We wanted all the good stuff in it. And to do that, the mills are all set up to mill grains. And you would turn everything into like a sunflower seed butter, so it's hard to do. And other people who have tried to copy are also getting, we have a patent pending process on all of this. We learned how to cold mill it so that we keep, all of the really, really good nutrients intact in the seed, and you don't get an oily flour. You get one that's actually very, very fine. So if you've used nut flours at all, it would be comparable to like a very fine grade of almond flour, one that you would pay a lot more for if it were a fine grade of almond flour. So that was a long, long process. And, once we figured that out, it became a matter also of saying, okay, well, like people aren't going to just know how to use sunflower and things. And, not everybody is an at-home from scratch baker. So what do we help people do? And that's why we ended up making baking mixes, like for brownies, pancakes, power bars, pizza. Now we're coming out with a bread. But we did that because we just wanted to make it easy for people. And when we designed it, we designed it to be like meal replacements, except the brownie. That they would literally give you 1/3 of your protein and fiber for the day with one serving. And most things, if you find them on the market, you're not going to find that there's any attention to, well, how much balance of macronutrients are there in the thing? So that actually took a lot of work, but we're really big believers in every bite counts. So we wanted to, make sure we had a process that really worked well. But then backing up, I think I mentioned, we really source the most nutritious seeds out there. So there's over 60 varieties of sunflower seeds. Most of them are used for birds. The ones that you get in the grocery are not the healthy fat. They can go rancid pretty quickly. And it's because they have an unstable fat profile. And we get the most expensive seeds. We get the mildest tasting seeds. So some seeds can be kind of bitter. And so we did a ton of work before we even brought this thing to market. And all of this was because it made the biggest difference in our lives. And then when family, friends, others were having, meals with us, we didn't even tell them what they were eating, and they loved what they were having. And after a while, we just got pushed. And so this became like our mission.
Yeah, and I want to point out one other thing, which is that, you two, you're educated, you were highly motivated to make these changes. And as psychologists, you and I know that it is not easy for people to make changes, even when intellectually, it's what you want to do. And I think that's why this is also relevant for us, because so many people are now doing the gut health program, or any of the other nutrition programs are doing portion fix. But with gut health in particular, Autumn's saying, okay, we're going to remove gluten, we're going to remove dairy, we're going to remove all these other, these 7 other potential triggers. Yeah. And for some people like her, and maybe like you and Dan, but although I know it wasn't super easy, but some people can just follow the rules and just do it. But more people than not have obstacles, and it's really, really hard. We have to manage our nutrition 16 hours a day, most of us. And so it's really, really hard. And this is where you have such an amazing skill set, because you understand as a psychologist the process of behavior change. And so for those of you who don't know, I've posted this in the team page before, but Karen did a podcast with me, and we talked a lot about what she's going to go into next, which is, how do you go about doing this? So, okay, you've heard the story, you've heard the science, and now you're intrigued. Well, yeah, maybe I really should test out removing gluten from my diet, or maybe I really want to do gut health, and so I'm going to remove gluten. But wow, how do I do that when I go out to dinner, or when I feed my family other, meals and they're not gluten-free, or when I'm, in a rush, and, there are all these potential barriers. It's just not as easy to just say, take it out. And so Karen and I wanted to spend some time talking about, how do you help people go about doing that and making it more doable and realistic? So should we dive into that next?
Sure. And Carol, this, but to be super transparent, this wasn't easy for me at all. So I may have had the cognitive skill set to know what to do, but that doesn't mean that you're not human. And when you are feeling really bad, the good news is I was kind of forced into making a switch. Now, some people would continue feeling bad for the rest of their lives. That's never been me. So, but I was desperate. I kind of would have done anything by the time I reached the nutritionist's office. So when she said to me in her lovely little, English accent, "Oh, Karen, you can't have gluten," and you can't, she told me all these things, and it sounded wonderful. However, she said it, and I was freaking out because I'm an Italian girl. And what do you mean I can't have my bread? Dan, everybody around me says, "Oh, I wish I had a Dan." Dan figured out that I was spinning because every meal I made was a pasta dish. And I did not know what to do. And going and buying, gluten-free pastas was just not an option. And so he was the one who was jumping in and trying to figure out, how are we both going to eat? So it was really out of desperation, but we got onto something. And I think the thing, just going back to these steps, and you guys, I know that this isn't new to you, but you've heard the term big why. What is it that is really motivating a change? Now, a doctor can tell you you need to make it a switch. You can hear it from friends and family. But really, it's got to be internal if you're going to do something that's significant and you want to sustain it. And that's hard, because you have to really dig deep to figure out, well, what is it? Why do I really want to make this change? What is it really going to get me? And being able to visualize, what does a future of me feeling better and thriving actually look like? I had been so far away from that experience that it actually was hard for me to envision again. And I had to rethink my life back to, when was I my happiest, and what made me the happiest, and what would that be like if I'm feeling better? The other thing that gets hard about this step, and you know, for many people, they have a big why of, oh, well, you know, my grandkids, I want to be alive for them, or, you know, I have a little kid and I need to be able to, you know, keep up energetically with my children. There's lots of reasons why you might want to make a big diet change. But there's also things that get in the way, even if you think you want it. And this is what I call the payoffs. And it's really understanding, you know, what are the things that are going to keep you in exactly the same spot you're in? So what rewards are you getting for doing exactly what you're doing right now? And that is a really hard, like that's the toughest, I think, of all of this. That's the toughest thing to figure out. So knowing what is keeping you in your comfort zone will help you set goals that you can actually achieve. Because if you don't understand all that and you start setting all these goals and you run into the natural emotional roller coaster that comes with changing your diet and having to read labels and doing all this stuff that's so new, it would be very, very easy to just throw it all away and say, well, that was a phase. I went through it. I tried it. It didn't work for me. And it's usually because people don't understand those things that are anchoring them in place. So Carol, did you want to add anything to that, or?
No, I think that that was perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. And we talk a lot about that as coaches, of helping people understand their why and staying connected to that, and putting reminders, you know, all over the place to keep that front and center. Because when you have to make these changes day in and day out, meal in and meal out, it's easy for that to kind of move to the background. So that's why vision boards and sticky notes and messages on your mirror, like all those reminders of what your why is, they're so helpful.
Mm-hmm. Good. And then, you know, next step seems pretty obvious, but it's like, well, what actually needs to change for you to be able to, you know, achieve this big why and this vision that you have of feeling better, doing better, the reason that you're wanting to make a diet change. And I think it's easy to get stuck in you've got to change everything. You can't change everything. We're human. We'll go nuts. So you have to prioritize. And so for me, it was gluten out, dairy out, and both of those things being out of the diet would mean a lot of inflammation in my system would go away. But then once the inflammation was gone, it was really all about focusing on what are the foods that I add in that are going to be anti-inflammatory and nourishing. And so again, it's easy to like say, I'm not going to do and be so black and white about it. And I know when you're starting things, sometimes you have to be a little bit more rigorous than over time when you can reintroduce things. But it's also really important that it's realistic enough for people to feel like they want to kind of wrap all their arms around it and understand what it's going to do for them. So I think, you know, knowing that you can't change everything, and then being able to think about, well, what does it look like and what does it feel like when you're actually successful? Because that will also help you like really understand, you know, what aspects of your diet need to change and why. For me, again, it kind of felt like everything because it really was. And then when I factored in all of my food allergies, it became even more and more things that I couldn't have. But you know, that feeling goes away kind of quickly once you find things that you're introducing that you like. One thing that I think is a really big deal at this stage of things is for people to actually like record what they're eating for a week or more. You know, you can pick a longer time frame. And the reason, and again, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir a little bit, because my guess is that as coaches, you're doing this stuff all the time. And the reason for having people record what they eat is what they think they eat and what they actually eat are usually really different. So until you see it all mapped out, you're like, wow, or you don't realize how over-reliant you may be on a certain food, or you might pick up patterns of times when you tend to be hungry and you'll go for the worst stuff. And analyzing all of that can then help you be prepared a little bit better. So that's something that I always recommend to people. And then, if you need nutritional counseling or if you need food testing to identify what are some critical changes you need to make, obviously getting that input too. Anything you want to add?
No, I was just thinking about one thing, which I think you're getting to in terms of, or you sort of did in terms of thinking about specifically what you need to change. And I'm kind of picturing, even if we just focus on breakfast, because you were saying, that's often one of the harder meals to manage when you're dodging gluten. And I find that most of us tend to eat the same things over and over again. So we really rotate in the end. I think we rotate between, like, maybe for breakfast, it's 2 or 3 things, for lunch, it's 2 or 3, and then maybe dinner, we rotate through more. And I literally do this with the people that I work with, is I have them write out index cards of the different options. And I think it makes it really concrete and so much more manageable. It's like, not like, oh my God, every day I have to reinvent the wheel and I have to come up with, what am I going to do? It's, if we can work together with our customers and just help them come up with the, 3 options, then you, like you said here, lather, rinse, repeat. Then you those work, those meet all the criteria, and then you have to repeat that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of making it feel less overwhelming, is knowing that you don't have to come up with 20 novel meals every week. You can, that's what we do, and then little by little, you can add in more variety, but just get used to a smaller number of options at first.
Yep, it's true. All of it can be overwhelming. So I think the point you make about making it manageable, every step of the way, make it manageable for yourself. That's why you start with a reality check and you look at what you're actually doing and you figure out, what changes can I realistically make? And for me, number 3 is probably like the way I feel like I should live, which is, I don't want to do something that I have to sustain for a lifestyle to be alive if I don't enjoy it. Like, I don't want the joy taken out of my life. And this is maybe the words of an Italian girl who grew up with food as a really big deal. Because I know there are some people who are like, no, I don't eat to live. I live to eat. Or, I actually said that backwards. But the idea being, food is a really big deal in my life. And if I'm miserable with what I'm eating, it's not going to last. It just isn't. So for me, that's really, really critical. I hear the same thing from a lot of our customers who will call me and say, I'd rather be fat and happy than have to eat another whatever, fill in the blanks again. And we get notes from them saying, you have really changed my life because now I'm enjoying it again, which to me is like everything. But 80 to 90% of diets fail. And the reason that they fail is because most of them are based on a deprivation model. Now, as a psychologist and a human being, I think that's just dumb. I just think that's dumb because it's all wrong. And, and there was a whole time when calorie counting was the thing to do. And I think that's all wrong for lots of reasons, not just because it's about starvation, but also because calories are not equivalent. And we've learned a lot since that thinking. But really the emphasis should be shifting to putting the right foods in your body in the right amounts, and then you don't worry about it. I feel like what was important for me was that I could still have donuts. It's not that I'm going to go have Krispy Kreme donuts or Dunkin' Donuts or whatever donuts are your favorite. I make donuts out of sunflower. They're amazing. And I can eat them and I can feel good about it. And I feel like I'm having a real donut. And at the end of the day, when I'm having donuts and I'm having pizza and I'm having brownies, I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything, and I'm nourished and happy about it. But again, those are the things that, like, I think people need to think about, is where are they going to get their joy, and looking at what are the foods that you love. So rather than saying, well, if I can't have gluten, I'm not going to have bread, I'm not going to have cereal, I'm not going to have pasta, I'm not going to have pizza, like, say, no, how can I have those things and have them be nourishing for me? So one thing that I suggest for people at this stage is that they actually create a meal plan just for a week. So Carol, this is right back to your whole idea about, let's keep it manageable for people. Let's not make it overwhelming. If all you had to do was think about a meal plan for a week, that's easy. I mean, not so hard if you're really sitting down and thinking about it, and sitting down and thinking about it when you're not starved, not label reading when you're, freaking out because you don't have enough time. You really need to have that be an activity separate from what are you going to eat in the moment. So thinking about how to make this transition not so painful, it's just like any other change you would make. You don't just dive in and start doing. You plan a little bit. You analyze yourself in relation to the thing you want. You put a plan in place and you give it a try. And then what happens when you give it a try? Well, you want to have a mindset of trial and error, right? Because things don't always work as you think they're going to. You may hate something or may not have figured out the right balance, or maybe your family hates what you're doing. But it's just really important, to be able to think about, those things that are going to be enjoyable for you, and what things could be enjoyable for your entire family. So if you want to make meals, don't make it about, hey, I'm the gluten-free person. You can make a meal that's super healthy and everybody loves, and not have it be only for that person. And suddenly you've now enrolled everybody else in the change, which has lots of benefits, as I'm sure you all know. And so that also is a strategy that is really helpful at this point. How important is it to you guys who are here with me, at least, that you love what you're eating?
1000%.
Yeah. And for some of you, maybe it's not such a big deal. Again, I can't even process that because it's just so important to me. But again, I really think that that's a critical part of being able to sustain something. So when I think about this, I've sustained this diet change for over 25 years. That's pretty significant when I look back at it. I don't miss the things I used to miss. So you start to change a little bit in what your palate wants too. But it gets easier. So the lather, rinse, repeat. This is, and be kind to yourself. And it shouldn't be really in parens. I think that should actually be the very first thing that you say. Is all this stuff, it takes about what, Carol, 30 days to build a habit?
I think so. Yeah. 21 days, 30 days. Yeah.
And so the lather, rinse, repeat is take the 1 week meal plan that you learned from, and anything that you learned in, kind of all the label reading, and now build it out for a month. If you don't want to take a month, just do it week by week. But really what you want to do is get a month under your belt of being able to implement some of these changes. And that just makes it easier, because suddenly you get into a process that does become habitual. And then I think the other thing, and this is the be kind to yourself part, what you tell yourself about your progress matters. Even if you don't say it out loud, what you tell yourself internally matters. And again, I know that all of you are probably saying, yeah, we know that. Been there, done that. But for me, that's something that I just really have to highlight, because if someone came to you asking for help and they went and they were able to stay on track for a couple of weeks and then went way off the rails on week 3, you wouldn't beat them up over it, right? You would tell them, well, you're human. And what'd you learn from it? And what were the triggers? What were the things that got you off track? How can we plan, better next time? What you would ask questions, and you would be supportive, helpful, caring. So we have to turn that stuff inward, because I think it's really easy just to kind of help other people, but not help yourself. And this is the part where I just really think there are people who like to do positive affirmations, whether that works for you or not. I think it's really important to notice small wins, and just notice when you've done something. It doesn't have to be, I've reached my whole goal. It just means, wow, I went through the day without feeling starved and needing to, go, snarf on a bunch of snacks at the end of the day. Whatever a small win is for you, write them down, talk about them, say them to yourself. But those are things that are really important. and just knowing that change is not linear, is also important. So really then the end of this is, well, evaluate and adjust. So if change is going to be sustainable, it has to work for you. And that sounds kind of like a dumb thing to say, because of course it does. But people will persist and persist and persist, even when it's really not working for them quite right. And it can't drain you. So if it's draining you, something's not right. And that's when I go right back to the beginning of, why am I doing this? What's keeping me comfortable? Am I changing too many things at one time? Have I really got, a diet in place that I'm loving? Am I enrolling my family in this so that they can be supportive? But if it's not working, you kind of want to go back and say, well, what is working? And how do I reinforce and amplify those things? And whatever's not working, is there a way then that I can address it or pivot, make a shift, even if it's minor, that would make a big difference to me? What thoughts do you have at this point?
Well, I have one other thing that I realized I wanted you to highlight.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit separate from the how-tos, but again, because a lot of people are doing this gut health program, and we're really emphasizing adding in plant-based foods,
Yes.
and especially plant-based proteins. And so for a lot of people, that's very new. And I was wondering if you could talk about some of the ways that you use the sunflower, like as a meat replacement. Like, can you talk about some of those options? Because those would fit into the red containers as a plant-based protein option. And I think people would be really interested to know about that.
Yeah, I think some of the things that are obvious when you think of flour are the baked goods, right? Like breads and pizza and stuff like that. The things that people don't think about are veggie burgers, meatless balls. There are, we make pasta out of it. We make wraps. And then the balls can go in the wraps, and all of a sudden you've got a massively high protein and, healthy fat diet. It kind of depends what macros you're trying to stay in line with, but you can use it to bread vegetables, which shockingly, and we still can't figure out why. So there's going to be some research on this at some point. When we have used sunflower to bread veggies and either bake them or fry them, or, we've done it all different ways, it is so filling. Like, we kept thinking it was going to be a side dish. It's not a side dish. It's a meal. And I don't know why. We've had people, do the same thing, and they are giving us the same feedback. We don't know why. So we'll bread broccoli, cauliflower, zucchini. You can make really delicious breaded eggplant slices. Like, there's all kinds of stuff you can do and keep it plant-based, but really high protein. And I think the thing that surprises people a lot when they learn about sunflower is that it actually has 25% more protein than meat. Yeah, I know. And so a veggie burger made with sunflower is going to give you a lot more protein than your hamburger. And then you're not going to get some of the stuff that you'll get from, the red meat. And by the way, I'm not knocking red meat, because there are a lot of things in my diet, but those are things that are surprising, and our vegan people love that.
Yeah, I just saw on your, I think on one of your emails or the Facebook page, the veggie burgers. And I was like, oh my God, that's genius. And I was super excited to use that as an option for one of the plant-based proteins. So I just think it really fills a need that a lot of us have right now as we're doing this program for the first time.
Yeah, pretty much anything that you can imagine for a baked good, you can make with sunflower. And then there are lots of other things that, that you can make. And like, even if you want to use meat to make meatballs, people will use sunflower as the breading. It works beautifully because you've got the fat in there, so it gives it a nice moisture and, all kinds of stuff. There's so much that you can do. And what we found is that we're limited by our own imaginations, but when our customers are given sunflower and chance to experiment, they're coming up with things that we hadn't even thought about. And we love that. So
Yeah, your blog is amazing. You have like all the recipes that make it so easy to kind of check them out.
thank you. So that's really kind of, I mean, I'm sure we could, say a lot more about all of these things. I don't want to, over talk. But if there's anything else that you want to land on or questions that you have, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, you had a lot of people at donuts, according to the chat.
Yes, we all need the recipe for the donuts.
It's so simple.
Hopefully that's on your blog.
Yep. It's actually just our pancake mix. And it is so easy. It is so easy.
You air fry them or bake them, or how do you cook them?
I bake them. We have done it in, metal pans. We just got silicone pans. It works really well. You can put anything in them. You can put toppings on them. One of my favorite things to do is put shaved coconut on top, because it gets a nice little crunchy toasty thing going on. But you can do anything. We've made cinnamon, chocolate chip, banana chocolate chip, like anything that you can imagine, whatever flavor you like, and they are very filling.
I've had the cookies. I haven't had the donuts yet, but I've made the cookies, and the cookies were so good, and my kids loved them. And many of us, face that challenge of trying to get healthier versions for our kids, and so I was really happy that they loved them too.
Yeah, and there are a lot of kids who love our products, which is kind of cool. And I think, not I think, when we were doing all of our R&D and really testing out different things, we did a lot of taste testing with people, but we didn't benchmark against gluten-free products. We benchmarked against places like Panera Bread, and where you would get a fresh baked good that you would enjoy. And we felt like if it doesn't taste as good or better than a wheat-based product, we haven't met the standard yet. And we get a lot of really great reviews from people because the taste hits it. And whether it fits for their diet or not, that's the mixes are good for lots of different lifestyles. Sunflower is where it's good for everybody, because you can make it fit your macros the way you want to. We have a lot of diabetic clients or customers who have to be low glycemic, really have to be low carb, and they do all kinds of things with sunflower, and they'll even write to us and tell us how it keeps their blood sugar stable, so they're not doing that blood sugar roller coaster thing all the time. That was also a problem for me, as I'm low level hypoglycemic, so blood sugar spikes would kill me. And the stuff just keeps you feeling pretty even energy wise.
Amazing.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Carol, for letting me talk about what I'm doing. It's I don't always have the chance to pull out of all the stuff I'm in. But when I look back and I say, oh, I've been doing this diet for 25 years, that just shocked me right then.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a story. I hope you have the opportunity to tell it, again and again, because it's so compelling, and I think a lot of us connect to it. Rose, did you have a comment or a question?
Number one, I don't think people even understood gluten-free. I mean, you did 25 years ago. So kudos to you to finding it out before. I mean, I wish I learned about it way sooner. I've been, I think, gluten-free for at least maybe 6 to 7 years. So, once you do it, it kind of, it's not that big of a deal of since when you first started. But my question for you is, do you have an alternative to eggs? Because a lot of the people that I work with, and myself and my son and my husband, we're all allergic to eggs. So yes. While I 100% want donuts, pancakes, and sunflower cookies, I'm going to guess it all has eggs in the ingredients too. So I don't know if you have any good tips for that.
We do. We have a lot of customers who have sensitivities to just about everything. So we're constantly coming up with, well, if you don't want this, then do this. And it's just kind of the way it goes. I'm lucky that I don't have to worry about eggs because I have to worry about almost everything else. But yeah, we do. We actually have an egg substitute that we like a lot with our products. So we've tested like everything on the market. And we really like to use either chia or psyllium husk.
Okay. Yeah.
And you know, we actually have the recipe on the website so that you get like what's the right amount of stuff so that it makes one egg.
Cool.
And many of our recipes you can substitute those eggs. There are some that you can't. So as an example, there's one bread recipe that calls for just an insane number of eggs, and it just would throw off all the structure. You know, so we'll tell people when it's a good substitute. And then there are several of our mixes you can make them without egg and get something different. So like the cookies don't require egg. And if you wanted to make crepes out of the pancake mix, you don't need egg. You know, so there's actually things that you can do and not even put a substitute in it, but we do have a recommendation.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'm sorry that
Thank
you're
you.
allergic to eggs. That's a hard one.
Well, funny thing, I even before like I did a blood test for it, we bought chickens thinking like, oh my God, like this is gonna be great. We're gonna have like free range chickens. And I was eating them like they were so good. I was eating them every morning. And oh my God, like instantly I'd like, for me, it'd be like running to the bathroom. I'm like, what is it? I was like, it's the freaking eggs from the chickens we bought. So
Oh no.
yeah, go figure. But thank you. Does anybody else, Anna or Beth, do you guys have any questions since you're on live?
I don't think so. I missed the first like 5 minutes. So I'm assuming the company is that sunflower.io.
Yes,
Something
that's our
bottom?
website. Yeah.
I'll show you.
Okay.
These are the products. And Karen was nice enough to set up a discount for us. So we'll put this on the team page. There's
Oh,
a
okay, cool. Yeah, I see it
Oh,
now.
nice.
yeah.
I missed the whole first part. Okay, I'm caught up.
I'm glad
Thank
you joined us.
Thank you. I have an 8.5-month-old who likes to sleep like a newborn. So
I
Yeah,
missed this part and I was on, so I must have been, I don't know.
Oh, I didn't put this one up yet.
Okay,
Yeah,
I was
but
like, I don't remember this one.
no, I was saving it for the end. I've tried 4 of these. I've tried the muffins, the power bars. They're good. They're really good for my kids who need so much food. I've made the bread. I have the brownies ready to make. So yeah, I'm super excited for you guys to try them. And there are tons of awesome recipes. So where's the website? Right here, Karen. Yeah. Wait, no, that's the discount. The website is just sunflower.io.
Yep.
Here at the bottom. And that's where all the recipes are, right?
Yes, there's we have a blog, but they're right at the top left of our homepage. You'll see something that says recipes, and if you just click there, it'll bring you there.
Okay.
And you can search. So if you're looking for keto, vegan, egg-free, you know, you can actually search for recipes that way. You can also search by meal type, or if there's just a recipe you want, you put bread in and whatever breads we have will pop up, or you put brownies in and you'll get a bunch of different recipes. So there's different ways to get at stuff if you want it. And if there's something that you want and you don't see, chances are we have it under development and just didn't get it on the blog. Or if we don't have it and we think we need it, we'll develop it. So
Awesome. That's customer service for you.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Thank you, Karen. I'm so excited for you to be able to share your story and for everyone to learn more about this, because I think it will be a really great anchor for a lot of the meal plans that we're doing. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it and your questions.
And maybe you'll meet some of us in July in St. Louis.
Yeah, well, you're more than welcome to come by.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic.
All right, ladies, have a good night. Thank you so much.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.